Hello, hello, what is up? What is good? It's been a while on these 2025 retrospective videos. Got very busy, a lot of stuff happened, but I'm getting back to them now at last. And today we're going to talk about coffee. So, around the end of last year, I realized that I had hit a point, and by last year, I mean 2024, sorry. Around the end of 2024, I realized I hit a point of no return when it came to caffeine dependence. I was drinking coffee pretty much every day, and days where I didn't drink it, I really felt the absence. Honestly, I didn't feel too good about that. That kind of freaked me out. That was something I'd hoped to avoid. But once I realized I was there, I kind of took a look at my coffee consumption habits. It was a lot of canned coffee, and don't get me wrong, I love canned coffee or going out to a cafe to buy coffee, which is also delicious but expensive. Making instant coffee, which isn't always the best. Just doing things to kind of like ad hoc slapdash put together a caffeine habit. And I was like, nah, if I'm gonna do this, I wanna do it right. And I had friends that are big coffee nerds who are all about, sampling different beans and really exploring the flavor range of coffee. So I asked them, what should I do if I really want to get into beans? I was recommended this guy, the Hario Immersion Dripper, and I got that for Christmas from my dad alongside a grinder. And then I just delved into the world of beans, local roasters, international suppliers, anybody and anyone who was offering up some interesting looking coffee. I was all ears. And because I have this type of autism, I guess, I put together a little slide deck talking about all the beans I tried and what I thought of them. So let's just go right ahead. This is not comprehensive insofar as some of these I bought several times, but I think this covers all of the unique different types of beans I went for over the year in 2025. So we can actually kind of estimate what my total coffee intake was, but maybe it's better not to do that. First off, this is a bag of beans I got from a local London roaster since I was back at my dad's place for Christmas when I got the thing. So we grabbed some beans on my way back to Toronto. This is, a local brand from London, Ontario, and this is like some coffee-ass coffee. This was actually a great place for me to start my coffee bean journey because I think this is as right down the middle as you can get. But the roast was a little bit too strong for me at the time. I decided as well, instead of drinking various lattes and, adding sugar or anything like that, I would just go full on black coffee. I have always enjoyed black coffee. When I was like drinking coffee as a teenager for the first time and stuff, I think it had a certain sort of coolness, right? A certain allure. Ooh, I'm drinking a black coffee. Oh, no thanks. I just take it black. Kind of badass, right? But as I was kind of adjusting from getting drinks from cafes or buying canned coffee lattes and stuff, it was a little strong for me to go all the way to the medium roast. So we'll give it a B. Next, I was in Chicago for a little bit for work, and I went to Trader Joe's, and this was something I was excited to get from Trader Joe's was their beans. Everybody has such adoration for Trader Joe's, so I had high expectations. And everything that I get from Trader Joe's overall, I was pretty impressed by all of their snacks and small dishes and stuff. Not that I've used them for like actual grocery shopping, because obviously I don't live in the States, but for little souvenirs and stuff, which coffee seemed to fall right alongside those habits. So I grabbed this one, a light roast, and it had a very desserty vibe, very sweet, very decadent. But the flavor wasn't like super complex. It felt a little one note of that kind of sweet, desserty vibe. So it was just all right. Give it an A minus. Then I discovered one that would prove to be one of my favorites. I grabbed this mostly out of convenience. I was at Farm Boy to do some other grocery shopping. Farm Boy is a Canadian chain that's kind of like maybe our equivalent to Trader Joe's or to Whole Foods or whatever. One of these a little more bougie stores that focuses on some more specific brands and organic food and stuff like that. So I was curious about their coffee. I didn't really have super high hopes for it because it's not like Farm Boy is like particularly known for its coffee or anything. But I was really a huge fan of this one. It had such a bright, happy flavor. I don't know how to describe it besides saying that it was happy. Every time I smelled it, I got a big smile. I was always excited to drink it as well. It's a very simple taste. I would say it's just kind of the coffee flavor, nothing too experimental or unique. Just sort of like the best version of the type of coffee you would have at a diner or a coffee shop or whatever. Yeah, maybe this proves that Farm Boy is superior to Trader Joe's because this was such just a high quality, lovely, everyday drink coffee. I ended up buying this bag several times throughout the year. It was one that I was always happy to have at hand. We'll give it an A plus. Really, really highly recommend it to any Canadians. Check it out. It's not going to be the most interesting coffee ever if you're kind of like a third wave coffee drinker that's all about the funkiness and pungency and tanginess and stuff. This is probably not for you. And don't worry, we'll get into beans like that later. But this is, if you're in the mood for just a coffee-ass cup of coffee, boom. This is more on the experimental side. This I picked up, I think, at a cafe where a friend of mine works. They were selling it. This is from the Rocanini Coffee Roasters, which I am not sure where they're from exactly. This is a very explosively juicy coffee, but also very explosively bitter. It had like a very intense bitter flavor. It kind of felt like one of those really fancy, extremely dark chocolate bars, like a 99% cocoa dark chocolate, that has stuff like dried berries, cranberries, blueberries, things that give it kind of like a sweetness and a fruitiness and that sort of jammy intensity, but still overwhelming notes of bitterness. Maybe my favorite packaging of anything I picked up this year, although there are some contenders there as well. Really pretty. I love these birds, the berries. I think it evokes the flavor quite nicely. Very vast, very bitter, very intense, but with still some complexity. Give this an A. I loved it, but maybe a little too intense. Then, having enjoyed the morning roast from Farm Boy so much, I decided to try their city roast. I had the black breakfast blend probably 2 or 3 times at this point. 2 or 3 bags, that is. So I decided to check this out. Has a nice round flavor. Felt very substantial, very pleasant, but a little less exciting, I guess I would say. Just something that didn't have that brightness, that happiness, that cheerfulness, but was more kind of mellow, maybe a little more understated. And also it confuses me when it says satisfying day or night, I guess to contrast it with the morning blend, but you shouldn't drink coffee at night. I guess if you work night shifts, you can drink it at night, but that would be like your morning. So I don't get it. Don't drink coffee at night. It screws with your sleep. It's not worth it. Always give your body time to fully process the caffeine. That is a lesson I learned the hard way several times. Anyways, we'll give this an A minus. It's solid stuff, but I prefer the breakfast blend. Oh, I forgot to animate the fade in for the rating here, but this was one I really liked. Pilot Coffee Roasters is another Toronto staple. I actually planned on exploring their coffee a lot more, but something happened that we'll cover in the next slide that kind of usurped it. But this one I really, really enjoyed. It had this very addictive, very citrusy flavor, very bright, very invigorating. A lot like the Farm Boy breakfast blend, but that brightness kind of came from a place of fruitiness, I guess, rather than just from kind of like a light coffee flavor. There was something there that kind of was a substantial pull in a different direction, and that sort of fruity coffee flavor was something I was very excited to explore. It had this very lovely silky texture. It was almost buttery in a sense, which is a strange thing to kind of describe your coffee as, especially if you're taking it black. But it had like a really nice, rich, velvety flavor, which I really enjoyed. Um, but it wasn't too sweet either, even though it did have this kind of bright, cheerful flavor that wasn't necessarily sweetness. It had more the tang of citrus, the sharp citrus flavor that you would get from like a pomelo or a grapefruit or something like that, which I really enjoyed. Then I got this mostly for the meme. Princess Auto is an Ontario staple. If you've ever seen one of these stores, they're just massive and they're like 99% kind of like car parts, repair parts, real nitty gritty mechanic type stuff. This isn't Canadian Tire where you're gonna find like home goods and accessories or whatever. This is for serious projects. But they have their own coffee brand. I have a lot of fond memories of Princess Auto, of my dad spending hours and hours and hours there comparing different options and trying to find different things and just needing to amuse myself at any way possible, exploring all of these shelves and looking at all this strange auto shop equipment. So when I found out they had coffee, I was like, hey, I gotta do it. Gotta do it for the culture, gotta do it for the meme. But this is also like very diner, straightforward, coffee ass coffee. It's nothing mind blowing, but it's just kind of low key pleasant, you know. I really hoped that in my journey of discovering my tastes in coffee and trying all sorts of different beans, I would never become like a coffee elitist, that I would never get too good for any coffee, that I would never turn my nose up and not enjoy a cup of coffee from anywhere. So I think I was able to maintain that sort of full spectrum appreciation of coffee. Although I did start drifting away from the appeal of these sorts of things a little bit. So I ended up getting kind of tired of this by the time I finished the bag. And yeah, I think this sort of coffee, they expect you to put some cream and sugar in it, right? This is something I encountered quite a bit, that I would buy these beans and drink them black and then realize, oh, this really isn't how I ought to drink them. If I'm meant to enjoy this the most, this is more your, double type of coffee. But, you know, I'm committed to the black lifestyle. I'm not going to swerve away from that. I think having something that I look forward to that's a genuine treat, that I do every day, that serves this kind of like punctuation in my life, that's also 0 calories, is awesome. And I really don't want to kind of corrupt that. But yeah, I would give this only a B. I think the black lifestyle kind of precludes some of these types of beans and steers me more towards the exotic flavors, such as DeMello. A DeMello coffee shop opened right down the street from me, like 2 blocks away. What a blessing, what a miracle. Probably one of my favorite coffee chains in the city. Actually, I think just straight up my favorite. All of their pre-made prepared drinks I am a huge fan of. Even though I was just saying, oh, isn't it great to have like a 0 calorie drink that you enjoy? Those are very caloric and I absolutely love them. The blueberry latte, the iced nom nom, all of their seasonal rotating drinks. I look forward to all of those. Really phenomenal. So I was going in there maybe a little too much to enjoy a blueberry latte or something like that. And it took a little while for me to actually have like the occasion to buy beans from them. They offer quite a lot of different roasts and varietals and stuff, that of course you can sample in their drinks. They have a rotating series of like a decaf, a light, and a dark. So by the time I bought the beans, I was already kind of familiar with a lot of them. But I still didn't really have a good sense of what I should go for. But this is a blend of 2 of their other beans that they're offering up as a special, where some of the money that you paid for it went to the North York Hospital Foundation. So I was like, all right, why not? Charitable component, let's go. It's really lovely stuff. Very rich and round and vibrant. Not as exotic as some of the other beans that I would try from them, but I really enjoyed this one. Returned to it a couple times. So we'll give it an A+, and you'll see the rest of this list becomes very DeMello focused, almost to a disappointing degree. I really wanted to explore Pilot and a lot of the other roasters around here. Tons of great places making coffee beans in Toronto, but The DeMello is just so convenient, and I like it so much, and they themselves have so many varieties that it was hard not to just keep returning there. Such as here, their Rwanda Kawa Yuka N. This one is extremely fruity, extremely tangy, extremely bright, sour, citrusy. All these things that I've really come to enjoy, that I recognized more and more was kind of the foundation of coffee I really enjoyed. And super, super juicy too. And, you know, not juicy as in the beans are somehow juicy. They're obviously dried. But the flavor is juicy. It's like salivating. It's something that feels very thirst quenching in a way. And as somebody that was, you know, hopelessly addicted to orange juice for a long time, I had periods in my life where I would drink a carton, like a big carton of Tropicana every day, which is really not good for you. This does kind of scratch some of the similar itches. This does give me some of the satisfaction I would get from that really sugary, really juicy juice. So I'm much more happy to lean into that with coffee, which of course does have complications as well with caffeine. But it's, you know, a cup of coffee a day, that's very sustainable. A carton of orange juice a day, absolutely no good. But really, really great stuff. Give this an A+. Oops, I duplicated the slide. My bad. Then I tried their Nom Nom Dark Roast, which they use in their Viet Coffee prepared drink. I absolutely love that. I would get that quite often. I just love Viet Coffee in general. But Viet Coffee is made with very, very bitter beans and then sweet condensed milk. That is the winning formula. And somehow I didn't realize that drinking this stuff on its own black would indeed be like super, super bitter. That feels pretty obvious in retrospect. So here I did break out of my black coffee only vow and actually start preparing this at home because I bought a whole bag of it and I wanted to enjoy it. So I started getting a little bit of some just half and half cream, just the splash to mix it in to mellow it out and balance it. And I did enjoy that a lot more. But as I said, the experience I want to have is drinking just 1 cup of black coffee a day, not having this sort of caloric mixed drink or whatever. So we'll only give it an A. I think the beans themselves are great, and the drink that you can make with it with condensed milk is phenomenal. But that's not what I make for myself, so for my own uses, my own purposes, we'll just give it an A. And it's sort of like the other beans I mentioned earlier, the ones that have the birds on the package, where the flavor is actually quite complex and quite interesting, but the bitterness is so strong that it kind of overpowers your ability to appreciate those to the extent that you'd like to. I duplicated this one too. What the heck? All right, next let's talk about the Hebe DeMello coffee. This was something they made in partnership with Uniqlo. It's another blend of some of their other beans. Really, really enjoyed this one. Just this lovely warm flavor, chocolatey, velvety, but still retaining some of the sourness of coffee. Still kind of the origin point of the mellow beans being this kind of like funkier, tangier, sour place. So I really, really enjoyed that mix. It's not too bold in any direction. Like, it's different, say, than the breakfast blend from Farm Boy, which just kind of tastes like coffee, and it's very round and kind of standard, but it's like within that definition of coffee, within the coffee flavor. Whereas this is if you had kind of like a more open-minded understanding of what coffee could be, and you're exploring the entire spectrum of flavors you could get from these beans. This, I think, is actually like a really lovely, really comprehensive sampling of all of those flavors. Just the perfect circle on the Rader graph of flavor. Sweetness, sourness, bitterness, smoothness, you know, sharpness, whatever. Any quality you could name, this is aiming for straight in the middle of that. And yeah, I could drink this every day. Hebe, of course, it's just day. And it means every day. It means the sort of thing that you do literally on a daily basis. And every day that I had this, I really enjoyed it. I think I could keep going. I probably should have grabbed more of this while it was available. I think this blend is actually was just the limited time thing with Uniqlo, so I don't know if I can get it anymore, but I really did enjoy it. We'll give it an S minus. Next, let's talk about the Demelo Ethiopia Bensa. This is one that I think is part of their every constant rotation. I picked it up quite a few times. This became kind of my standard. I think I started by getting it for a friend of mine who's also a big Demelo fan. It was a birthday present for him. He said it was very good, so I definitely wanted to get to it at some point. And once I did, this became, I think, probably my favorite of the year. It's another really juicy, fruity Demelo. This really kind of feels like the core wheelhouse of their coffee, what they specialize in, what they do best. It's really smooth. I think that's what gets me the most, is just the drinkability of it. Just this really addictive, mellow aspect to it that just makes it so drinkable while still also having like an extremely complex and attention-getting flavor. If anything, it reminds me of like puree gummies, which is an unrepented addiction of mine. Something that is so kind of explosive and attention-getting and craveable, like a flavor that really implants in your memory, and yet is so smooth, like so Moorish, that you're never kind of overwhelmed or exhausted by it. You just kind of want to keep going back to the well. And this made me really think that I wanted blueberry flavors in coffee. Because Demelo makes a blueberry latte, which actually has like a blueberry infused milk as the base. And then some beans that often have coffee taste or blueberry tasting notes as well. This lists blueberry as a tasting note, which I think I could kind of perceive and seek out. We could do a whole video about tasting notes and about the sort of psychological play there. I took a whole wine tasting course that really taught me a lot about it and how it's working in the brain. But basically, if you want to taste blueberry, you can taste blueberry. You can definitely evoke that within yourself, and I enjoyed exploring that blueberry flavor as I drank this stuff. I just love blueberries in general, blueberry jam, wild blueberries, the whole spectrum of blueberries from very, very sweet to very, very tart, I think was very well represented here. So this made me think that maybe blueberry was the key to something I really enjoyed in coffee. We'll give this an S. I think this was my favorite of the year, one I'm always, always happy to return to. And then it led me to try this. So we were on our way to Pacific Mall, which is a real shopping institution of the GTA, this gigantic Hong Kong mall that's located out in the GTA exurbs up in Markham, North York area, Richmond Hill, in that kind of intersection zone. Probably a lot of you do not know what I'm talking about. That's okay. We were on our way there. We stopped in at the Peak Friends Mr. Christie Cookie Outlet Store, the Cookie Factory. If they have defects, if they have broken up cookies or packages that come in underweight, sell them directly to the consumer at like criminally low prices. That place is awesome. Highly recommend checking that out if you're a cookie fan. But right next to it was a cafe supply store that had, all the various pump syrups and stuff that you see at like Starbucks, all sorts of prepackaged snacks to serve alongside coffee, all sorts of industrial espresso machines and things like that. So we decided to pop in there too. It's just kind of a cool idea for a store. I'd never been in anything like that before. And they also had beans. And I thought, hey, while I'm here, why not grab some beans? This is a pretty unique place that I'm probably not going to go to anytime soon. And this one jumped out to me. Blueberry cream flavored coffee. And what I failed to recognize is that there is a major, major difference between coffee beans that have tasting notes of blueberry or whatever, where just that bean, the varietal of the bean and how it's roasted, can suggest certain flavors to you or have certain qualities of flavor that then coincide with the flavors of other fruits and stuff. and flavored coffee where you actually infuse through some sort of oil or spray or whatever a flavor into the beans that is not just produced by the beans themselves. This was the latter. Now, had I realized that, I probably still would have tried it, because that still does sound interesting or whatever. So yeah, I got this on a whim. And I think in the novelty of, let's say, you're at your hotel coffee bar, and this is an offering, or you're going to make a more complicated drink with it, where it goes alongside a blueberry syrup or something like that. A drink where coffee is no longer kind of the primary component, but one of those Starbucks type drinks where, you know, coffee is one component of many. It's not maybe even the primary component of the plurality or whatever. There, I think this sort of flavored coffee makes sense, because it's like you want that flavor to be coming from every aspect of the drink. Or, you know, you're just having one cup of coffee like this and you go, huh, yeah, that's interesting. It tastes like blueberries. But for my purposes of making a cup of this black every day, no. I got tired of this pretty quickly. It's just so one note. It's just so kind of extreme. And it doesn't really taste like coffee anymore, you know? Like, obviously you can still taste coffee, but it's truly flavored coffee that tries to mask the coffee taste with something else. And yeah, I just didn't enjoy it that much. I did drink the whole bag because it felt like a waste otherwise. I did experiment with like milk and stuff in it, which I think helped, but still not really the sort of thing I was looking for, and definitely not kind of like the blueberry latte from DeMello, which I enjoy so much, which I think I was kind of hoping somehow this would end up tasting like, but it doesn't really make any sense that it would. So glad I experimented with this idea of flavored coffee, but definitely not for me. Not for me. Like I said, I think it makes sense in the context of this cafe supply store where you're buying these beans to turn into drinks or to offer to people in a context where they're just going to have one cup and go, huh, that was interesting. For me to buy it and use it at home, I think doesn't make much sense. So I'll give it a C. And that was it. That was the last coffee bag I had this year. I don't have too much else to say. I enjoyed making this video. Articulating my preferences and stuff, I think, is always a good thing to do when you're exploring something like this. It helps you hone in on what you like. And I'm excited to do this again next year. I'm already into my second bag of 2026. So look forward to that. Please recommend if you live in Toronto or you know places that supply to Toronto, and you've got some beans you really like. Please recommend them. I'm always curious. I do like pretty much everything. So there's nothing that's a bad suggestion. Everything is educational. All right, that's all. See you in the next one.